The mission: no one was meant to survive. The grand hall of the Zoltrax Empire was filled with silence. Many alien commanders sat in high chairs, looking down at the only human in the room, Jack Carson, a simple soldier from Earth. His armor was old, his face was calm, and his eyes showed no fear. One of the commanders, a tall red-skinned alien with 6 eyes and golden horns, stood up. "We have a task for you, human," he said with a voice cold like ice. "A wild beast has made its nest in the jungle of Kurza 9. It has killed many of our finest warriors. We believe only someone with special instincts may succeed." Jack tilted his head. "You mean, you want me to go in alone?" There were chuckles around the room. "Yes," said another commander. "Take your bravery with you. You'll need it." But Jack didn't laugh. He nodded and simply replied, "When do I leave?" They were surprised. No questions, no fear, just that calm voice. The commanders exchanged glances. They had expected begging or resistance, but Jack accepted too easily. The truth was simple. They wanted him dead. Sending him into the beast's jungle was not an honor. It was an execution. No one had returned alive from Kurza 9. It was full of deadly creatures, poisonous air pockets, and thick vines that moved like snakes. But Jack wasn't like other soldiers. He had survived in worse places before Earth ever met aliens. The next day, a small shuttle dropped him on Kurza 9. The air was heavy. The sky was greenish-gray. Tall, twisted trees stood like giants. Jack took a deep breath through his mask, checked his bag, and stepped into the jungle. Each step made a crunch. He walked carefully, leaving signs behind on tree bark with his knife just in case. He wasn't here to die. He was here to do what no one else could: survive. He didn't charge forward blindly like the alien warriors. He studied the land. He moved with silence. He watched every shadow, every movement in the leaves. He saw bones on the ground, big ones, fresh. Jack crouched, touching the marks. Huge claw scratches, bigger than a lion, bigger than a bear. The beast was real. But Jack wasn't afraid. Not yet. Hours passed. He set up a small camp using survival tools from Earth, things the aliens didn't even know how to use. A silent tent, a scent blocker, food pills. That night, he heard something. Crunch, crunch, sniff. Something was outside his camp. Jack didn't grab his gun, he just waited. Calm, ready. The leaves parted, and for 1 second he saw it. A massive shape, glowing yellow eyes, black fur shining under the moonlight, muscles like steel, fangs like daggers. The creature stopped. It looked directly at him. Jack slowly reached into his bag. He pulled out a ration pack, unwrapped it, and threw it near the beast. The creature didn't attack. It sniffed the food. Then, in a moment that would change everything, it ate the food and disappeared back into the trees. Jack smiled slightly. "So, you're not just a killer, huh?" The next morning, the alien commanders watched Jack's tracking signal. "He's still alive?" one asked. "That's impossible. Even our best didn't last a full night." They didn't know Jack had grown up in Earth's wildest lands, that he once spent 6 months alone in the Arctic, that he learned patience, reading signs, and listening to silence. Back in the jungle, Jack moved carefully. He found more signs of the beast. He noticed its wounds, bloody prints, drag marks. It was hurt, maybe from a trap or a fight. He followed the trail, deeper, darker. Finally, he saw it again. This time, the beast was lying on its side, breathing hard. A deep cut ran along its leg. Jack didn't lift his gun. He dropped his gear, sat down, waited. 4 hours. Then slowly he opened a med kit. Still sitting. No movement toward the beast. He tossed a bandage closer. The beast sniffed it. Then, it didn't attack. By nightfall, Jack was still alive. But more than that, something strange was starting to form out a connection. This was no normal beast, and Jack was no normal man. He whispered into the fire. They sent me to die. But maybe, just maybe, I'm here for something greater. Behind him, in the shadows, the beast lay awake, watching, not growling, just watching. Rain fell like burning oil on the leaves. Jack moved slowly under the thick green canopy, every step sinking into soft, wet mud. The jungle was not just alive, it was watching. Strange, glowing plants hissed as he passed, and flying lizards circled above, shrieking like alarms. But Jack didn't stop. Behind him, there were no footsteps, not from soldiers, not from machines. He was alone, but he wasn't lonely. Every now and then he felt something behind the trees, a presence. Not hostile, not friendly, just curious. The same beast he had seen. It was following him. Earlier that day, Jack had packed the last of his supplies and marked a new trail on his map. He had decided, if the beast didn't attack, maybe it could be something more. A wild animal? Yes. But animals had rules. They had instincts. Jack had worked with wolves once, back on Earth. He knew how to read their eyes, knew when to look away and when to stand tall. And that was the key. Here, don't act like prey, don't act like a threat. Act like something in between. As he moved deeper, he saw signs, scratches on trees that marked territory, bones in piles, some fresh, some ancient, and claw prints. Huge ones. But here was the strange thing. The prints matched the beasts, but they were walking in circles, around Jack's camp, around his trail, watching, studying. Later that afternoon, he found something shocking, a half-eaten alien helmet from one of the previous hunters sent before him. Blood dried around the cracked shell. The jungle didn't show mercy, but something felt off. Jack checked the wound pattern and realized the truth. It wasn't the beast who killed him. It was a trap. The trees around had signs of a net launch. The helmet had burn marks, laser marks, not claws. Jack's breath slowed. He looked around carefully. Someone's hunting the beast, he whispered. Suddenly, movement. Branches snapped. A sound like thunder rushed toward him. Jack turned. Too slow. A blur of black fur launched at him from the left. Wham! But the impact didn't hit him. It landed between him and the jungle wall, the beast. It had tackled something else, a cloaked figure holding a plasma spear. The attacker screamed, rolled, and vanished into the brush. Jack stared at the beast. It stood tall, muscles flexed, breathing hard. Its eyes locked on his, but not with rage. Not with hunger. With purpose. Jack slowly raised both hands and whispered, "You protected me?" The beast didn't move. Jack reached into his bag, pulled out more dried food, and placed it on the ground. He stepped back. The beast walked forward, sniffed it, ate, then sat, like a wolf waiting for command. Jack exhaled. "You're not just a beast, you're a survivor." He took a slow step forward, and the beast didn't flinch. Its tail curled slightly, and in that moment, Jack gave it a name. "Shadowfang," he whispered. Night fell quickly in the jungle. Jack made a fire, but, low and smokeless, he couldn't risk another ambush. Shadowfang curled nearby, not sleeping, just guarding. Jack spoke quietly while patching up a small wound on his arm. "They think I'm dead already. Sent me here to be erased. But I don't die easy." He looked at the beast. "You don't either, do you?" The beast blinked, then laid its head near his boots. In a floating satellite above the planet, alien commanders stared at the screen in disbelief. "Impossible," one said. "The human is walking beside it?" "Not just walking," another whispered. "The beast protects him." The High General clenched his jaw. "This is not part of the plan. If he returns alive, our lie will be exposed." He turned to a silent officer. "Send in the purge drones. Burn the jungle if you must." No witnesses. Back in the jungle, Jack didn't know about the new danger above. But he felt something in the air. The sky had gone quiet. No birds. no buzzing insects. Even Shadow Fang looked up at the stars and growled low. Jack tightened his belt and loaded his only working plasma knife. "They're coming," he said, "and we're not running." The jungle was burning. Red fire streaked across the sky as alien purge drones rained destruction over Kurza 9. Trees exploded into flames. Creatures screamed. Smoke twisted through the air like ghosts. Jack didn't run. He stood still in the middle of a ruined clearing, chest rising with each breath, plasma knife in one hand, a flare in the other. Beside him, Shadow Fang roared, a deep, thunderous sound that echoed through the jungle. They were no longer man and beast. They were a team. Ours. Earlier, before the sky turned red, Jack and Shadow Fang had found shelter in a collapsed cave. The beast had led him there, nudging him with its snout and walking ahead through the underbrush. It wasn't just following him anymore. It was guiding him. Inside the cave, Jack saw something that took his breath away. Bones. Dozens of them. Alien weapons. Blood-stained armor. All signs of the warriors who had tried to hunt the beast and failed. But then, in one corner, hidden behind broken rocks, was something else. A nest. Not made for comfort, but built with care, lined with fur, leaves, and bones shaped into walls. Jack crouched. "You were protecting this," he whispered. Shadow Fang walked beside him and looked down. Inside the nest were two small bones. Tiny, like cubs. Jack's throat tightened. "They killed your family." The beast gave a long, low growl, not at Jack, but at the memory. Pain, rage, loss. For the first time, Jack saw it fully. Not a monster, but a parent who had lost everything. He whispered, "I'm sorry." And then slowly he reached out. Shadow Fang leaned forward and gently pressed its forehead to Jack's hand. The bond wasn't just beginning. It was forged in pain, in survival, in shared betrayal. But the moment of peace didn't last long. A faint whistle echoed from above. Jack knew that sound. A drone scan. He pulled Shadow Fang back into the cave, just as a pulse beam struck the ground outside. Boom. The cave shook. "We've got to move," Jack said, grabbing his gear. But Shadow Fang didn't run. Instead, it climbed the rocky wall and shoved open a hidden exit. It had planned this before. It had escape tunnels. Jack followed, heart pounding, mind racing. The beast wasn't just smart. It was tactical. As they moved through the tunnels, Jack spoke softly. "They think you're just a beast. They think I'm just a tool. We'll show them both." Shadow Fang growled lightly, as if agreeing. The tunnel opened into a valley Jack hadn't seen before. Mist floated above the ground, and glowing blue flowers lit the area. But what stunned Jack was what stood in the middle. An ancient, ruined stone pillars, strange markings. A giant broken statue of a creature that looked exactly like Shadow Fang. Jack whispered, "Your kind was worshipped?" Shadow Fang walked to the statue and sat beneath it, like a king returning home. Jack stepped forward, touching the carvings. Some were in languages unknown, but one looked familiar. Human-like symbols, English. One phrase. "To walk with the Fang is to tame the wild." Jack's eyes widened. Humans have been here? Before? But there was no time to think. A screech filled the sky. The drones had found them. Flames lit the edge of the valley. The jungle behind them was burning fast. Jack looked at Shadow Fang. "You saved me. Now I save you." He grabbed a flare from Wu. His pack struck it and tossed it high. The signal burst in the air, bright green light shooting into the sky. Not a distress call, a challenge. "Come get us," Jack muttered. He turned to Shadow Fang. "Let's fight together." The beast roared again, standing tall beside him, larger than life. In that valley, surrounded by fire and ruin, something new was born. Not just a bond between man and monster, but a legend. Up in the alien warship orbiting the planet, commanders stared in disbelief. "He's still alive," one whispered. Not just alive, said another. He's bonded with it. The High General slammed his fist on the table. That creature is sacred. If the people see this, they'll rise behind the human, burn everything, leave no trace. Back on the ground, Jack looked at Shadowfang and smiled. They sent me to die, he said quietly. The beast growled low in agreement. But now, we're going to make them regret it. The jungle had changed. It was no longer just a place of danger. It had become a battlefield and a home. Jack and Shadowfang moved through the thick forest like shadows. Together they hunted. Together they survived. No longer man and beast. Now brothers in blood. The morning after the drone attack, Jack woke to the smell of fire still thick in the air. Burnt leaves, melted bark, and blackened skies covered the landscape like a death shroud. Shadowfang stood on a hill nearby, watching the distant smoke. Jack sat up, body sore, wounds bandaged. They'll send more, he said. The beast didn't move. Instead, it growled low, warning Jack. Something was coming. Suddenly, 3 alien scouts broke through the jungle wall, weapons raised. Hands up, human, one barked. Step away from the creature. Jack didn't move. Neither did Shadowfang. The scouts approached, unsure. One stepped closer and shouted again. Back off or we shoot, Jack whispered. Bad idea. Too late. Shadowfang leaped. 1 second. It was still. The next, the first alien was on the ground. Weapon crushed, scream silenced. The second one fired, but Jack tackled him, slamming his head against a rock. The third turned to run, only to find Shadowfang blocking the path, teeth bared. He dropped his weapon and raised his arms. Don't kill me. Jack walked over, bruised and angry. Why are you here? The scout trembled. They sent us to finish the mission, to kill you both. Jack narrowed his eyes. Why? They're afraid, the scout said. Afraid people will see what you've done, that a human bonded with a sacred beast. If you return alive, everything changes. Jack nodded slowly, then looked at Shadowfang. The beast growled, but didn't attack. Go, Jack told the scout. And tell them this. He paused, then added coldly. We're coming back. For the next 3 days, Jack and Shadowfang traveled deeper into the jungle. They avoided drones. They hunted wild prey. They trained. Yes, trained. Jack discovered. Shadowfang understood signs, whistles, and even some words. He taught the beast to circle enemies, to distract, to scout ahead and return with warning growls for numbers of enemies. In return, Shadowfang taught Jack where to step without sinking, how to track jungle wind, and where the poisonous plants were hidden. It was not human leading beast. It was warrior learning from warrior. One night, while resting under a rock shelf, Jack asked, softly, How many of your kind are left? Shadowfang gave no answer, but its eyes turned sad. It looked up at the stars. Alone, I see, Jack said. You're the last one, aren't you? The beast rested its heavy head beside him. A moment passed. Jack reached out and scratched behind its ear. We're both survivors, both unwanted, but together, maybe we're more. That same night, a memory returned to Jack, back on Earth years ago. A mission gone wrong. His team abandoned him, left for dead in enemy territory. But he lived, crawled back, scarred but alive, the same way now. Except this time, he wasn't alone. This time, he had a reason to fight back. In orbit, the High General watched a feed from a hidden drone. He saw Jack sitting beside the beast, sharing food, sleeping in peace, unharmed. Impossible, the general hissed. One advisor warned, if word spreads, citizens may rally behind him. They believe the beast is a holy guardian. Another added, and now, the human is that guardian's chosen one. The general clenched his jaw. Then we bury them both in fire. Back in the jungle, Jack woke before dawn. The air was too quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind. Shadowfang stood stiff, nose raised. Jack, felt it too. A rumble in the ground. He looked up. A massive warship broke through the clouds, glowing red underneath. Shadowfang growled. Jack whispered, "They've sent the death squad. No time to run, no time to hide." He looked at the beast. "Ready?" Shadowfang didn't blink. They rushed toward higher ground. Together they used every trick they'd learned: ambushes, traps, camouflage. Shadowfang charged through enemy lines like thunder. Jack struck from the shadows, blade flashing in the dark. Together, they brought down trained killers, one by one, falling like leaves in a storm. The jungle became their weapon. By nightfall, only smoke remained. Bodies of armored soldiers lay scattered. Shadowfang, though wounded, stood proud. Jack leaned on a tree, breathing hard. "We survived again," he said. He looked down at a torn enemy flag, then looked at the stars. "They'll never stop, you know." Shadowfang let out a deep, tired rumble. Jack smiled. "Then let's bring the fight to them." The jungle was silent, but it wasn't peace. It was a trap. Jack knew it the moment he stepped into the clearing. The grass was too short, the ground too clean. The trees stood in perfect circles. Shadowfang stopped, sniffed the air, and growled, low. Jack raised his hand. "Yeah, I smell it too." Then he saw it, half hidden under a pile of fake leaves. A sensor mine. Jack knelt and disarmed it in seconds. "They're not just trying to kill us now," he muttered. "They're tracking every move." Shadowfang's ears flicked. The beast turned sharply. From behind the trees came footsteps, light and careful. Not soldiers. Something else. Then a voice. "Jack, is that really you?" From the trees stepped Sergeant Malra, an alien hybrid woman Jack once trusted. She was half human, half Tharn. Long dark braid, sharp purple eyes, and the same elite recon armor she wore during Earth's peace mission. Jack's jaw tightened. "You're alive?" She nodded slowly. "Barely. They sent me to track you. But I saw what they did. The lies. The setup." She walked closer, hands raised. "I didn't come to fight. I came to warn you." Shadowfang stood between them, growling, ready to strike. Jack didn't blink. "Say it straight. What's the warning?" Malra sighed. "They've built a wall around Kurza 9. No one gets out, no transmissions, no rescue. You and that beast, you're legends now. And they're scared of legends." Jack said nothing, but he knew something felt off. Malra looked tired, too tired, and her left boot, it had a fresh burn mark. From a mine, he never heard it explode. His fingers twitched near his weapon. She stepped closer. "They think you're heading for the northern ridge. They've placed something there. Not drones. Not soldiers." Jack frowned. "Then what?" She lowered her voice. "Another beast. One they captured, tortured, controlled." Jack's eyes narrowed. "A mate?" he asked quietly. Malra nodded. "They wanted to lure Shadowfang into a trap." At that moment, Shadowfang let out a low, painful sound, almost like recognition. Jack turned and saw the pain in the creature's eyes. He whispered, "It's real, isn't it? You can feel her." Shadowfang stepped forward, sniffing the wind. He knew. Jack turned back to Malra. "Why help us?" Malra hesitated. "Because I believe the war's already begun. And I'm choosing the right side this time." Jack decided to follow her, but cautiously. They moved toward the North Ridge. As they walked, Malra explained everything. The High General was losing control. News of Jack and Shadowfang surviving had reached nearby colonies. Some alien citizens had even begun drawing symbols of the beast in public, a symbol of rebellion, a symbol of truth. If Jack returned alive, everything would collapse for the rulers. Night fell. The air got colder. As they neared the ridge, Jack noticed something strange. No animals, no insects, not even the glowing flowers. Just cold wind and silence. Then they heard it. A soft whimper. Shadowfang froze. From a stone cage at the cliff's edge, a dark shape shifted, smaller, slender, same fur, same eyes. His mate. She was trapped in a force cage, wounds on her side, breathing weakly. Shadowfang took one step forward. Malra stopped him. Wait. Too late. The moment his paw touched the ground, boom, explosions lit the valley. Flame nets flew up. Soldiers hidden in stone trenches appeared, guns drawn. Jack grabbed Malra and dove behind a rock. "You led us here!" She didn't resist. "I had no choice," she shouted. "They implanted a control chip. If I didn't bring you, they'd kill me." Shadowfang charged into the flame barrier, roaring. Sparks burned his fur, but he didn't. Stop. His eyes stayed locked on his wounded mate. Jack stood and shouted, "You want war? Fine. You'll get it." He threw a grenade at the cage controls. Boom! The field around the female beast flickered and broke. Shadowfang reached her, circling her gently, licking her wounds. The soldiers opened fire. Jack pulled Malra down, returned fire, then whistled loud, one sharp sound. Shadowfang heard. With a final snarl, he bit into the ground, triggering the last trap Jack had planted hours ago. A mudslide. Rocks, water, and trees crashed down from above, burying half the enemy line. The few that survived ran screaming. The female beast, now free, limped beside. Shadowfang. Malra sat in the mud, hands raised. "I didn't know, I swear." Jack looked at her coldly. "I believe you," he said. "But trust? That's gone." He turned to the two beasts. They stood together now, Shadowfang and his mate, wounded but not broken. Jack smiled. "Let them come now. We're not done." The gates of Varnock Prime were made of diamond-forged steel. They were built to keep out armies. They were not built to stop one human and two furious beasts. The guards on the outer wall stared through their scopes. One by one, their jaws dropped. "What is that?" Through the thick black smoke rising from the far jungle, a shadow appeared, then another, then a third. Jack Carson marched forward in silence, dirt on his face, armor scratched but eyes burning like fire. Beside him walked Shadowfang, massive and terrifying, yet calm. On his other side limped the wounded mate, leaner, lighter, but just as fierce. Behind them, nothing but scorched earth and broken traps. In the control tower, alarms blared. He's alive. How did he survive? They were supposed to be ashes. Inside the palace, the High General crushed a wine glass in his clawed hand. "Open fire. Do not wait." Outside, Jack heard the hum of turrets charging. Red lights flickered on the walls. Giant guns rose like serpents preparing to strike. Jack stopped walking. He reached into his backpack. The soldiers above raised weapons. "Ready." Jack pulled out a small metal box. He held it high, a remote detonator. He smiled. "Let's test how much I learned in your jungle." Click. Far behind him, near the outer jungle, a chain of explosions lit up the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The shockwaves hit the walls like thunder. The city shook. Suddenly turrets powered down. EMP mines, timed to perfection. The soldiers above stared in horror. He planned this. He planned everything. The gates cracked open. Barely. Just enough for Jack to step through. No army. No bloodshed. Just fear. Inside the city square, hundreds of alien civilians gathered, staring with wide eyes. They had heard rumors. They had seen hidden footage leak. Human who survived Curza 9. A beast that obeyed him. A second beast who followed him like family. And now, they were here, in the capital, alive and unafraid. Jack stepped onto the central platform. He looked around. The people were silent. No shouts, no cheers, just shock. He took a breath and spoke loud enough for all to hear. "You sent me to die," he began. "You laughed as I walked into hell." He turned, gesturing to Shadowfang. This creature you called a monster. You hunted his kind. You caged them, burned their forest, killed their cubs. He pointed at the wounded mate. And now? They stand with me. Because even a beast can recognize honor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jack stepped forward. You called us weak. You called us expendable. But now I return with your greatest fear, a living legend, he paused. And I'm just getting started. On the palace balcony, the High General watched in frozen silence. Behind him, his advisors whispered in panic. If the people turn, he'll spark a rebellion. Sir, what do we do? The High General's eyes narrowed. Kill him, now. Dozens of elite soldiers rushed from the palace gates. They charged the square, weapons raised, armored heads down. The crowd screamed and scattered. Jack didn't move. He turned to Shadowfang. You ready? The beast growled, then leapt forward like lightning. Crash. The first soldier didn't even get a shot off. Shadowfang slammed him into a wall. Jack moved fast, using the chaos. He ducked, rolled, and took out 3 with shock darts. The female beast, though injured, struck with precision, fast and deadly. Within seconds, half the squad lay groaning or unconscious. The rest fled. The crowd roared. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. A child, an alien girl with blue skin, stepped out from the crowd. She walked up to Shadowfang, trembling, but curious. Shadowfang knelt, bowing his head. The girl touched his fur. Gasps filled the air. Then, one by one, others came forward. More civilians, young and old, touching the beast, standing beside the human, choosing sides. The High General saw it all. He turned to his remaining troops. Stop them! Fire into the crowd! But no one moved. His army hesitated. One captain dropped his weapon. Another saluted Jack from the balcony. The people had made their choice. Jack stood tall, breathing heavy. The city square was his now. Not because he took it by force, but because he returned alive. Because he returned with truth. And because he was not alone. The camera drones, now hacked by Malra from a hidden uplink, streamed the entire event across every system in the Empire. Billions watched. A human, walking with beasts, unbroken, and the people whispered one thing. He came back. The sun rose over Varnock Prime, but this time, it rose on a new world. No more silence. No more shadows. The city, once ruled by fear, now echoed with the sound of hope. And in the center of it all stood a human with fire in his eyes. And 2, beast at his side. Jack Carson walked through the palace gates with no invitation. The civilians cleared a path. No one stopped him. No one dared. Behind him walked Shadowfang, his fur streaked with blood and ash, yet his steps calm and heavy like thunder. The wounded mate followed, healed just enough to stand strong beside them. Together, they climbed the grand stairs of the palace, the very same stairs the High General had once used to mock Earth's people. Now the roles had changed. Inside the throne room, the High General sat like a statue. A guard ran forward, sweating. He's here, he's inside. The general didn't blink. I know. He stood slowly and walked toward the balcony where the city below cheered. Not for him, but for the human. You want power? He said quietly. Let's give him a show. Jack entered the throne room with no armor, no army, only courage. The massive doors slammed shut behind him. The general clapped slowly. You're braver than I expected. I'm angrier than you expected, Jack replied. And smarter. The general drew a blade made of star steel, a weapon passed down by ancient warlords. Let's end this the old way, one-on-one, for everything. Jack nodded. No tricks. Just truth. The duel began fast. The general lunged with surprising speed, swinging the blade with deadly skill. Jack ducked, rolled, and slashed with his plasma knife. Sparks flew, steel clashed. Each move was fueled not by hatred, but by memory. The jungle, the traps, the betrayal. Every breath Jack took reminded him why he fought. Not for glory, not for revenge, but for those who couldn't fight back. Outside the palace, civilians gathered below. They watched the battle through drone feeds. Across planets, screens lit up with the image of Jack facing the alien who sent him to die. Hope burned brighter than ever. Inside, the fight dragged on. Jack was bleeding. The general smiled. "You're just a man." Jack smirked. "Exactly." Then, as the general raised his sword for a final blow, a loud crack echoed through the hall. Shadowfang crashed through the palace window. The general turned too late. Jack tackled him to the ground, disarmed him, and held his knife at the tyrant's throat. Breathing heavy, he said, "You sentenced me to death." The general snarled. "Do it. Kill me. Be the monster they fear." Jack stood tall and dropped the blade. "No. I'll do something worse." He turned to the watching drones. "I forgive you." The general looked stunned, confused, broken. Jack continued. "But you'll live to see your empire rise without you. You'll watch the people choose peace, and you'll fade into history as a coward." An hour later, Jack stood on the grand balcony. The High General was dragged away by his own guards, and Jack spoke, not just to the crowd but to the galaxy. "They called me a throwaway, they sent me to die, but the jungle gave me a friend, the fire gave me purpose. And now, I return with proof that humans are not weak, not just survivors, but protectors." He looked at Shadowfang, who stood proudly beside him. "This isn't just about me. This is about all those they tried to silence. And from this day forward, let it be known, no species owns strength, no empire owns truth, and no beast walks alone." The crowd erupted, flags fell, new ones were raised with the symbol of a man and a beast, side by side. Weeks later, Jack didn't take a throne. He didn't wear a crown. Instead, he left Varnock Prime quietly, with Shadowfang and his mate. He chose the wild over the palace. He chose freedom. Legends say he returned to the jungle, not to hide, but to guard it, to teach others, to protect what was left. And whenever the stars go dark and danger rises, people still whisper the same words. Send your monsters, burn your jungles, bury him if you dare. But he'll return, riding the beast that was never meant to be tamed.